7 a.m. from Fox 35. This is Good Day.
Tom, thank you. It's something that a lot of new parents try to avoid, spanking or hitting their children, but it's actually more common than you might think, especially right out in public where everyone can see. In a new study, researchers watch parents discipline their kids in public places like restaurants. Researchers found that 23% of moms or dads resort to negative touching in public to get their child to listen. A negative touch includes anything from restraining, spanking, pinching, or hitting. There's a huge debate about spanking right now, wanting to know, is physical discipline ever okay? And joining us this morning on Good Day, Jada from Total Life Counseling. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too, Amy. Thank you.
You know, a lot of parents have this conflict within themselves because I was as a child, and perhaps you were too. My parents spanked. Right. And so you go back and you're like, well, gosh, I turned out okay. My parents spanked me. But then they're like, well, I don't want to be that parent. How do you resolve that conflict?
It's very difficult to resolve the conflict because, you know, you love your children and you see them doing something wrong and your initial reaction is to respond. And one of the things I tell my parents is, if you're going to discipline your child, make sure that it's not out of anger or it's not you're reacting to something they're doing. If they don't know, they need to be educated. And in educating them, there are two different ways to do that. Like you just said, it's the negative touch, and then there's the positive touch, which is tickling and kindly encouraging, and that. So it's being able to distinguish what the child needs at that moment.
Many parents struggle with the discipline aspect of parenting. That's probably the biggest one you hear parents talk about. I just don't know what I should be doing. What are some of the things that we should be doing, some positive ways to discipline?
It's interesting you bring that up because there are more studies that are going to be looked at because they want to make sure that parents understand when to use the physical touch and when to, you know, refrain and use a more communicative approach. So in that, there are a couple of things. There are the timeouts, and also kind of pulling back and saying, you know, you're not going to have your PSP today, and making sure that they understand that there is a consequence for their behavior.
And not giving in, that's the biggest thing, right?
Consistency is difficult for parents. Absolutely. That's one of the things I see mostly with my clients is, you know, they don't know how to say no. And drawing lines and, you know, setting and establishing firm boundaries is a challenge because you don't want your child to be mad at you oftentimes. So, yeah, it's being consistent in the discipline and making sure that they understand why you're disciplining them.
And really, what's interesting too, I think, is the long-term ramifications of not instilling good discipline when they're kids, as far as the not, you know, learning to say no, learning to, you know, to sort of keep those promises, because if you don't, long-term, it's
going to be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And fluid boundaries will, they're not going to be good in the future. Once they become teenagers, one of the things I hear a lot of my teens say now is, well, they weren't trying to discipline me, you know, back then, and now they're all of a sudden they're trying to establish boundaries. But if you can get them early enough and establish firm boundaries, it'll definitely pay off in the future.
And real quick question before I let you go, because this is one thing that's always bothered me. How early do you start disciplining? I see parents sometimes trying to discipline, you know, babies, and I think it's a baby, you know?
The baby, they don't understand at that age. The developmental process hasn't taken place yet. All they know is that you're hitting me. I may not know why you're hitting me, but, you know, you're disciplining me. But to be able to get them to understand why you're disciplining them is the most important factor in this. And yeah, can they learn at a young age? They can learn, but I think that, like I said before, it's very important that you don't discipline out of anger and frustration, but discipline because your child really needs to understand what to do and what not to do.
You always give great advice. Jada Collins, Total Life Counseling, thank you so much for being with us this morning. She's got a radio show coming up in a few weeks too. Very excited about that. On WFLA, so make sure you check her out on the radio.
Hello, I'm Jada Jackson, licensed mental health counselor, and I believe that life change begins with a healthy relationship between the counselor and the client. Now, at our private counseling firm, we believe in creating a very safe and protective environment for our clients. Now, although I'm a licensed mental health counselor dealing with very complicated issues that include anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, and sexual abuse. I'm also a life coach, and that means I deal with very common life transitional issues and career development challenges. Now, counseling is not an admission for weakness or failure. It's a bold statement of power and security and strength. And I want to help you develop a healthy treatment plan and strategy so that you can achieve your ultimate success in life. Remember, your journey for success starts now. Stay tuned for ways that you can contact me today.